right, folks, here we are with the Daniel Amos Less Than an Hour podcast. I'm here with my son, Andrew.
Hey, guys.
And we're here to talk about Daniel Amos' Horrendous Disc. That's our third record. And we were just talking about the fact that most everybody knows the info on this. Fans, you can go on the DanielAmos.com timeline, and there's lots of other info available to people. So it's a little difficult to talk about this one without sort of repeating things that people already know. The timeline, when it was released, the dark underbelly of this record, all the controversy, of course, which I don't really want to get into. Everybody knows that story as well. But
you've talked about it a lot before.
Yeah, but as I've said in the past, I was a fairly young guy, and I believe now at this point in time, looking back, that I could have probably handled things with a little more grace and patience. Larry had his reasons for, hanging the record up. My guess is they were financial reasons, but I have no idea really. And I do know that for us as a band, it was a very difficult time because we were a working band. We were constantly touring, and here we were going out on the road without an album.
Right.
And we had sort of moved on from Shotgun Angel, especially with the change in personnel in the band. We became what they call the big band, which we added Alex to the lineup, who played percussion originally, then went and played percussion and drums as well with Ed. And we added Mark Cook to the band, who had been in a local Newport Beach band. And Steve had left. And one of the things that endeared us to the Calvary Chapel crowd and to Maranatha music and all of that were our vocal blend.
Right.
And Steve had that really sweet, beautiful tenor, and we had we emphasized the harmonies. We were sort of doing the country rock thing at the time, or folkish type Americana material, and that blend was a beautiful blend. And we lost that when we lost Steve, who'd gone on to Colorado to sort of join the Calvary Chapel movement out there in Colorado and become a solo artist. And as I said, we replaced him with Mark, and then Alex eventually came into the band. So it was a good time to sort of change direction, but it also going out on the road and playing this new material without a calling card, which would have been Horrendous Disc. Some of this, the musical change was shocking to some people.
Yeah,
they didn't understand it. It alienated a lot of people. We gained a lot of new fans, but lost some of the old ones who were extremely disappointed that we had gone this direction. But that was always the direction that I had intended Daniel Amos to go. And that was to explore a lot of different forms of style, musical style.
You guys were playing a lot of this stuff on the road before the record had come out, right? So people were hearing it maybe on tour before they even heard the album.
That's exactly what was going on, and that created some controversy just on the road. And I think it was in Nova Scotia. I remember that we were these are pretty rural people, and they'd come to see Daniel Amos. And although we mixed in a lot of the old stuff to keep the fans happy, we still our set consisted of a lot of new material that we were introducing. It was the big band, as I said, and the whole thing. And I remember the first song, I forget what the venue was, but the first song we played, and there was like this you could hear, the frogs croaking. It was very, a couple of these, and everybody,
sparse.
The looks on those people's faces were priceless, and we kind of knew we were in trouble, but that was our set. We had to push through anyway. And various places that we'd play, we'd have a mixture of people that loved what the band was doing, and then many people very upset who would confront us after shows and not just say what happened to you guys musically, but equate the new musical direction with the loss of our first love.
Oh, wow.
In terms of our relationship with Christ.
Right.
It's like they equated this new style with having abandoned the faith. It sort of got that heavy. So then when the album got held up for as long as it did, and the controversy with Larry came out, that really turned up the heat on us. And consequently, as a result, after we finally were able to, after Horrendous Disc came out, and then it was immediately followed by Alarma, because we'd even moved on. It's a long enough period that we'd moved on from Horrendous Disc itself.
Yes.
This created even more confusion.
Suddenly you have two new records out. The fans think you have two new records out that sound completely different from each other.
Exactly. And it was just, it was
It's really bizarre.
It was a bizarre time, and it weighed heavy on everybody. And by the time we became a four-piece for the Alarma record, Alex had left, and both Alex and Mark had left the band, and I couldn't blame them. We'd all been through a lot. It was amazing that we didn't just break up as a band. But the story of how Horrendous Disc came about was that we began recording it for Maranatha Music at Whitefield Studios, which was owned by Calvary Chapel. And we had great sessions there in which in the evening we'd dress in our pajamas and come over and, do a late night session and that sort of thing. And we also knew that there were people that were dropping by and that sort of thing, and most likely giving Chuck Smith an update of what they were hearing. And I can't say that was necessarily a positive view of what we were attempting to do.
Or an accurate representation of what you were doing.
What we had done with Shock and Angel. And so subsequently at that point in time, Maranatha Music was having difficulty with some of the older artists that were involved there, because they were no longer kids anymore, but many of us had families and mortgages or rent to pay. And when we all started out, we knew nothing about the business of publishing rights and things like that. So it was becoming financially more and more difficult to survive as a band.
Right.
And then subsequently, with that problem, came more complaints and a more desire to be involved in the business end of being a band and benefit from that. And so Maranatha began to shift its emphasis from bands to praise albums and children's praise albums, with the intent of phasing out the band thing altogether. The culture was changing. The bands were changing in terms of their stage appearance and stage movements, and it was much more of a performance, and fitting with the culture. Before, most of the bands had been sort of these folk rock bands, and it was perfectly fine for a band to sort of just stand there and perform their songs. And so I don't think the cultural changes in music set very well with the powers that be at Calvary Chapel. They're having difficulty finding things that they were comfortable with.
Right.
And so the word came down to us that Maranatha wanted to help us seek out a new label. And they would do everything that they could to get us in contact with various movers and shakers and try and get us a deal. And nobody felt, what's the word for it? That no one felt that was going to be a problem. It's the way to put it. In that Shock and Angel had been a fairly successful record, and we were kind of at the height of our popularity at that point. So, we weren't sweating that at all. And in the meantime, with Alex joining the band, he had connections to Street Level Music, which was the booking end of Larry Norman's Solid Rock Records.
Right.
And he had talked to some of the people down there, and they were very interested in booking the band. And we thought, well, that would be a great association with that group of artists. So, it was Mark Hurd and Tom Howard and Randy Stonehill and, of course, Larry himself. So we went down to L.A., or went up to L.A., had a talk with Ray Ware and some of those people, and they said, yes, we would be interested in doing this. And we were very excited about that. In the meantime, we were shopping this record. We talked to several record company heads that said, we would love to sign you. And eventually, we actually talked to Pat Boone, of all people. And the reason that we talked to Pat was because his daughters, one of their favorite songs was called Father's Arms, which was on the Shock and Angel record. They loved the song, loved it enough to record it for their own record. And of course, their record included Debbie Boone, who'd had a huge hit with You Light Up My Life, massive hit. And so they recorded Father's Arms for their record and told their dad they loved Daniel Amos. And
all right, okay, oh yeah, keep your cool and don't hurt nobody. It all lies within you, so the dying say, and you believe in the words of some buried prophet. All right, okay, oh yeah, they nod their heads in unanimous approval.
he was connected to what was called Curb Records,
yeah,
which was a secular record company who'd had, a number of artists on their label: Eric Burden and War, Sammy Davis Jr., Lou Rawls, the Righteous Brothers, Roy Orbison, the Four Seasons, Lyle Lovett. And so we met with Pat and we met with Mike Curb, who was getting ready to run for lieutenant governor of the state of California. Mm-hmm. And he eventually went on to hold that position. But they both told us, we would love to sign you to Curb Records. And that was very exciting for us. So here we had Curb Records lined up. We had Street Level lined up to book us. So we were seeing, forward progress and moving on from where we'd been, and being in an atmosphere with Street Level and those particular artists sort of took us out of the Maranatha Calvary Chapel thing and put us into more of a cutting-edge sort of place, which is musically where we wanted to go anyway. And then the next thing we know, we get a call from Street Level. They want us to have a meeting with them and with Larry. We go up there, and we are told by them that Larry said, we don't book artists that aren't part of the Solid Rock family.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Someone that's outside of the Solid Rock family. I look back and I think, well, originally they said they would. Now they're taking that off the table. Mm-hmm. So it felt a little bit that there was some maneuvering there to get us to be part of Solid Rock.
Strong arm into that or something.
A little bit. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, understand this is business, and you do what you have to do. But so we were kind of taken aback by that. But then Larry added this caveat. He said, I know the lawyer who is handling the Curb record deal. He was my lawyer when I was getting record deals when I started out. And he said, so I know how this guy thinks, and I would like to represent you in those meetings with this lawyer. And we said, well, that's great. So the next thing we know, Larry's coming back to us and says, they're not offering you anything beyond just a basic deal, and that they would give anybody. And he said, you don't want to go that route. And we took his advice, and we wound up on the Solid Rock label. And that's how we'd already recorded Horrendous Disc with Mike Stone as a producer. But at that point, Larry took over. He shot the famous Flying Saucer cover
Right.
out in some neighborhood there in Santa Ana or Anaheim or somewhere. And then he had a couple of his guys remix some of the tracks. And there you go. We get Horrendous Disc. So, what we thought was working out fairly well then turned into this delay that was fairly devastating for us, and turned into a lot of nasty stuff that was very unfortunate. Again, I just reiterate that I wish I knew now. I wish I knew then what I know now in terms of trying to protect the relationships, doing what we had to do, but being more soft-spoken and kind and introspective about it, prayerful about it, and all of it, more than we were. But it is what it is, and it's part of our history. And so there you go. That's Horrendous Disc. As far as the songs go, the first song, I Love You, Number 19, that was a big creative step for us. That opened up obviously a larger creative palette for us. And that was a pretty hard rock kind of thing. We'd never done anything like it in Daniel Amos. And the interesting part about that is that we had recorded it and then gone on the road for quite a while, and we would perform it, you know. And as we performed it, it got a little faster in tempo.
Right.
To a place where we felt really comfortable with it. It was really great. So coming back and listening to the recording of it, it just seemed like it was like we were moving through, you know,
sounds slow
peanut butter.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for the reissue, the deluxe issue, reissue of Horrendous Disc, especially the remastering of it. That I don't think that the first mastering of it was particularly good.
Yeah, this sounds really good.
It covers so much depth and nuance that you didn't hear the first time out. And obviously, when the campaign Kickstarter campaign to get people to contribute to the reissue, the deluxe reissue, which if you haven't checked it out, especially the vinyl collection, even if you don't have vinyl, it's worth having. But let me just say this, get a record player. Anyway, obviously there's a lot of emotion when I think of Horrendous Disc, and a lot of it's not good. I associated much of it with something I didn't even want to concern myself with and distance myself from. I couldn't listen to the record. I really didn't want to listen to the record. We moved on musically, but more importantly, we moved on for the personal aspects of it. So I was happy to allow others to get involved in the process of the Kickstarter program and all of that, and the construction of all the bonus material, and I just wanted to sort of stay above the surface on that, keep my distance. And it was even, I didn't listen to it even after the deluxe edition came out for a while, and then when we put it on, I just fell in love all over again with the record and with the guys that my bandmates, and started recalling some of the better times, good times about that, and how we were all in this thing together, all the controversy and leaning on each other, and sometimes feeling very alone in the struggle. The song "Hound of Heaven" is one of the tracks that the fans really seem to love, and as a matter of fact, Larry himself probably loved this song more than any other on this record.
Yeah.
And he recorded it a couple times. One version that he recorded, he actually put on a re-release of Horrendous Disc.
That's right.
So that's quite a salute.
I guess so.
We got lost among the stars. Hollywood flash, trash, hash, cash, mansions and cars. Deep sea diver, Learjet flyer. Will this thing go to the moon? Oh yes. Give me elbow room, and for heaven's sake, baby, kiss me. Won't you take this aching away? Hey, 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 you can't run. You can't hide from the hound of heaven. You're free to choose. Can you refuse the seeker of souls?
Then there was Nearsighted Girl with Approaching Tidal Wave, and I've told this story before, but we had actual mariachi band in the studio. Alex had found them in the streets of Santa Ana. They came in their full mariachi regalia and with the sombreros and the cummerbunds and the whole thing. And these guys came in. They'd never been in a studio before. The leader spoke English, but a little bit broken, but nobody else understood English, so they didn't even have any idea what we wanted as we tried to explain to them what we were trying to do. And finally, I thought, well, I might win them over. They might have some religious background, maybe they're Catholic or whatever. I thought if I said we're a gospel group, that might win them over, a little bit. And when that was translated to the other members of the band, there was one particular guy there that looked, pretty nervous anyway, just about being in the studio and confused about what was going on. But when the leader told him we were a gospel band, and he'd already understood a little bit of what we were trying to do and the song that we were recording, this, Nearsighted Girl with Approaching Tidal Wave, this guy completely freaked out. And he said something and left the studio, and I turned to the main guy and I said, "What's going on?" And he goes, "He thinks this is sacrilegious."
Right.
So anyway, they wound up doing that middle eight in Nearsighted Girl with Approaching Tidal Wave, and it's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
This song and the title cut, Horrendous Disc, are two of my favorite cuts on the record, just because of the time changes and little shifts in what I call our scenes or rooms, different rooms within the house, that we take you into musically and lyrically. I think the Horrendous Disc the song is one of my all-time favorite songs. So there was Sky King. A lot of people love Sky King.
Yeah.
That was my ELO thing. That was
Right.
my ode to ELO.
Out across the sky, hey, hey. I'm out across the sky.
And then there's the classic Man on the Moon. Everybody loves Man on the Moon. That's Jerry's song, and it is a great song. Stands up after all this time. Little bit dated in terms of its content, because it was talking about the Reverend Sun Myung Moon at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So, but as a song, it's beautifully crafted and just right up Jerry's aisle. You know, he did a great job on it. And there you go. The other thing I would add was how the whole flying saucer thing came about, because we were calling it Horrendous Disc, but we didn't have any association with aliens or flying saucers when we conceived of that title. And we were having a get-together over at Alex's house. It was like a pajama party thing. And we thought for it we would each create our own alien costume, just as a fun thing to do. And Larry and Randy both showed up at the party, and Larry was completely delighted by these costumes that we'd created just for the fun of it.
You know he calls you long distance. No doubt he's dropped you in line. Right now,
And pretty soon, the next thing we know, he's taking pictures of us in these costumes. Well, it was in Larry's mind all along that he was going to take that title, Horrendous Disc, and really run with it.
That'd be the concept of the art or the
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, and even the printed material, Planet X, and
Right.
that whole thing. And we kind of ran with it too. And so there we are, wound up wearing our alien outfits. And you got
And the
you got
gatefold there.
Yeah, you got Mark Cook. For some reason, Larry chose to make him the guy that is not only gazing up at the flying saucer, but on the back, the beam is coming down on his head.
Just on Mark, yeah.
You know, just as he's ready to, I guess, leave the planet. I don't know what's going to, or maybe it's eliminating him from the band. It's hard to tell in that photo.
Yeah.
But one thing I would mention about the touring, we had a lot of laughs on the tour, and one of the things that was a particular hit was that Alex had a strange sense of humor. That one time we were in the van, and Alex it was kind of quiet. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and there wasn't really anything to talk about. You know, we're just kind of sitting there going down the road, and I look over and I see Alex, and he's sort of laughing to himself and putting his hand over his face. So I said, Alex, what are you laughing about? And he goes, oh, I just got this idea about when I get home. I said, oh, okay. He says, well, what I'm going to do, he goes, I'm going to obviously, you know, kiss my wife and bring my luggage in, this whole thing, but then I'm going to go down to the bedroom down there, and I'm going to shut the door, and then I'm going to start banging on the walls and the doors. And my wife is going to come running down there, and the door is going to be locked, and she's going to hear me in there. She's going to say, Alex, what's going on? What's happening? And he says he's just going to open up the door slightly and go, pray for me, honey. I'm fighting with the devil.
He concocted this plan.
He also concocted his alter ego, which was Foofy. Foofy was this female that had this strange accent. She'd go, Foofy, love you.
Oh, God.
And every once in a while, he just become Foofy.
Wow.
I've been meaning to give him a call, and I can't recollect some of his lines. It's been such a long time, but I'll try and get some of those down for you and share them with you.
His foofy line?
His foofy lines. There were a number of them. And as a matter of fact, at one point we were playing somewhere out in the Midwest, and we were on stage doing a sound check, and suddenly Alex comes out, and he'd managed to find a wig and a dress somewhere. And we did the whole sound check with him playing tambourine as Foofy and making various
Wow. You should have done that at the real show or see how that
Oh yeah,
went down.
Oh yeah, we should have gone that direction. But anyway, so when you look at the Horrendous Disc album cover and you see Alex, think of Foofy.
Yeah.
Foofy, love you. All right, kids, that's all I've got. Need we say any more? Someone had reminded me that during the course of recording Horrendous Disc, we got the idea for doing something called 10 Big Ones.
Right. 10 biggies.
10 biggies, sorry. 10 biggies, and I'm going to tell that story next time we're together. The story of 10 biggies, how that came about, but we'll save it for next time. Until then, my dear friends, in the words of St. Thomas Aquinas, we really appreciate it.